You can put it on the book and like that, but don't put it on the floor. All right. I guess they're gonna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Not over there, over here. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 6th day of June 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 3 on page 184. In most of your books. Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto asime sakhacheti rahasyam yetad uttamam sahevayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto sime sakhacheti rahasyam yetad uttamam Sahevayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto sime sakhacheti rahasyam yetaruttamam Sahevayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhakto sime sakhacheti Rahasyam yetaruttamam. Sahebayam mayateja. Yoga prokta puratanaha. Bhaktosime sakacheti. Rahasyam yetaruttamam. Sahebayam mayateja. Yoga prokta puratanaha. Bhaktosime sakacheti. Rahasyam yetaruttamam. Word by word, sa, the same, eva, certainly, ayam, this, maya, by me, te, unto you, adya, today, yogaha, the science of yoga, proktaha, spoken, puratanaha, very old, bhaktaha, devotee, asi, you are, me, my, sakha, friend, cha, also, iti, therefore, rahasyam, mystery, he, certainly, etat, this, uttamam, transcendental. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Page 184, the bottom. Purport. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science, owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. You got the one book that has different pages. Text 3 of chapter 4. We should hide that book. We should hide it. Okay. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demonic, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers from the path of Krishna consciousness. From the path of Krishna's instructions. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So as Srila Prabhupada points out, this is a little bit of the history of the Bhagavad Gita. In the first verse, Krishna said, Imam vivasute yogam proktavanaham avyam vivasvamanave praha monarikshvakave bravit. That I originally spoke this yoga. Now I always thought it was interesting that he refers this yoga. But what yoga is that? We just finished the third chapter and there's no mention of yoga. But the last verse, Krishna is describing how we can sublimate material desire into spiritual activity. Evam buddhe parambuddhavad samstapyapnamaatmana. Thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, Omadayam Darjun. One should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So that, he's giving him an injunction that you should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. But how to do that? That's the yoga that he's referring to. And Prabhupada helps us out, he says, in brackets, Krishna consciousness. So Krishna spoke the science of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, millions of years ago. This is actually an eternal process. It's never, this is the process for knowing God, and God is eternal. So it's been around forever. But in history, if you will, this manifestation, he spoke it way back to the sun god. And then he's described, well, why is he coming again? Second verse, evam parampara paptam. This science was received, this parampara means the disciplic succession, from guru to disciple who became another guru for his disciple, and on and down and down. But what happened? By the force of time, and he says, mahata kalena, by the powerful force of time, this science as it is has been lost. Then, and we can see just in our own history of since Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, just before the Kali Yuga, what happened? Prabhupada gives us some information here in the purport. There are so many Bhagavad Gitas. I read the Bhagavad Gita long before I met the devotees. I even knew about the devotees. A couple of years. I was interested in yoga and this and that. I picked up a Bhagavad Gita from the bookstore, paperback bookstore, a little thin pilgrim, what is it called? Penguin edition. I don't think there are any purports, maybe a little sentence here or there. And I read it, and it was fascinating, it was intriguing, but there's no way that I'm going to take up bhakti yoga from that, because it wasn't written by a devotee. It wasn't written with the purpose. Look at these purports Prabhupada puts in here. You know, he's bringing in so much knowledge from different books of. You'll notice there's so many verses quoted in the purport. Just to text 1. Look at all those slokas quoted in the purport. He's quoting from Brahma Samhita. He's quoting from Santi Parva of the Mahabharata, and it goes on like that. It's very rich. And you should know that he's basing this commentary on a commentary by another great acharya, Baladev Vidyabhushan, to whom this book is dedicated. So this is called parampara. You take the realized knowledge originally from Krishna, who spoke it to Brahma, who spoke it to Vyas, to Narada, who then spoke it to Vyas, and then came down Madhvacharya, all the way to Srila Prabhupada and all the way to us. So that's the way of receiving this knowledge from realized sources who are expressing it in a way that we can understand. One of the main foundations of the revolution of Prabhupada's preaching that he translated into English. This was part of the instruction he got from his spiritual master. Because if it's been extant for millions of years in Sanskrit, would that have helped you, Michael? Not really. Who knew Sanskrit? But Prabhupada painstakingly gave us these word-by-word meanings and these transliterations, which enable us, most of us, to be able to chant the actual Sanskrit sound, which is potent in and of itself. Just like this sound, Hare Krishna, you may not know what it means. What is it? You're walking by, millions of people have walked by the chanting parties. They don't know what it is. They know, oh yeah, they've been around since the 60s or something, whatever. George Harrison, whatever. But they don't really know. But the sound itself is so potent. The sound of the Sanskrit, especially Krishna's name. So that's the same thing holds for these verses. And so Prabhupada took, I work in book production. Believe me, the book would be a lot shorter if there was no Devanagari, these letters that no one can read, and then the transliteration, and then the word-by-word meanings. That adds at least 100 and 150 pages to the book over a course of a 1,000-page book. But Prabhupada wanted that in there so that we, even in our Western Kali Yuga ignorance, could learn fairly easy how to vibrate this sound, which in and of itself is purifying. So, what we just read, Sahevaya Maya Teja, right? Isn't that the one we read? 3. So why is he speaking to Arjuna? This is a very important point. Because Arjuna is his bhakta, he's his devotee and his friend. So this is the key for understanding the message of the Gita. It's your frame of mind. Because this book has been taught in universities for a couple of hundred years now, because the English picked it up when they were in India from the 1700s. And it was the most read book, spiritual book in India. It was like a basic primer. It's only 700 verses long, but it contains the whole philosophy in a very succinct form. So it was well known. The British got into it, and that means if it came into the English language, that means it came to America. There were the Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, and some others in the 19th century who were reading this. So this book has been around in America for some time. But
where is the pure devotee to give the commentary? How do we apply it to our lives? So it was fascinating, it was intriguing, and got into universities. But as Prabhupada explains in his purport, there are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some have commented by the devotees, some by the demons. So those who want to misuse the philosophy or exploit it, or just get people interested so that they'll come to the yoga class or whatever, that's not going to help us ultimately. But we're fortunate to have a bona fide spiritual master, guru, whose mission was given to him by his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to give this science to the English-speaking world, to take it abroad. And the story of how he did it is just amazing. And at age 69, with failing health, he gets on, not an airplane, and not even on an ocean liner, but on a cargo ship that he was able to get free passage because he didn't have any money. And he came to America. He just turned 69 on the boat, actually. It was Janmashtami. He celebrated on the boat. And then he had 2 heart attacks on there, And somehow he gets to the shore over here, and he gets off at Boston before they went down to New York. And he takes a walk and says, "Oh, why did you bring me to this place? What am I going to do?" But you brought me for some reason, so it's up to you to make my power of speaking such that I'll be able to enter the hearts and convince people. And miraculously, he was successful because he had Krishna's power behind him, because he was empowered by the Lord. And what that means is really the power of love. It's the power of purity. And love and compassion are very closely aligned, really. So when he was finally able to, I've just been reading this wonderful book by Mukunda Maharaj. I never read the whole thing. I just read the first part of it, and it's now at least 10 years old. It's called The Miracle on 2nd Avenue. A very famous book. And I happened to come across it in the database. It's in there. And he was speaking about San Francisco. Prabhupada's in New York, and things are happening there, but they're really happening in San Francisco. 1967, this is the summer of love. This is when the hippie phenomenon hit its peak. And Mukunda is there. He's not initiated. Yeah, he was initiated. And they figure, how can we get the Swami to come out here? And so they figure, well, we have to have some kind of event, some kind of a celebration. So they came up with this the mantra rock dance. They invite all the big bands. But anyway, it's just a fabulous description. I've read it before, but this is he was right there. Satsuru Maharaj wrote it, but he wasn't there. Anyway, it's fascinating. So anyway, back to our verses. So I'm speaking to you because you're my friend and my devotee. So if we become devotees of Krishna, even just sincere, neophytes, then Krishna makes us more receptive to the message. If we're trying to follow it, then it becomes your life and soul. This is instructions for your life, So it's all in the question of the devotion of one who is writing and giving the translations and commentary, and the devotion and receptivity of the hearer. So Srila Prabhupada wanted these classes to go on, so I'm sorry I've been absent for a while. It was unavoidable. My voice was kind of weak. It's still not 100%. And I was doing a yearly book. By the way, I got more books. I got another shipment in of Vyas Puja books. So if there's a market, I'm going to bring them. The market is, you'll just take it home with you. They're free. But they're fabulous books. They're big hardback books with big pictures of Prabhupada and beautiful homages to him that we print every year. I got some back from the 90s, not just 2000s. So I know you'll be interested in building a library. So I got a shipment in from LA because they're also sitting in the warehouse over there. So this will be part of our program. So this is setting up Arjuna's question, which is very interesting. And it takes us into the next part of this chapter. Okay, if there are no questions or comments.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Vijay, you have something?
Yes, I do. May I?
Please.
Dravida Prabhu Dandavat Pranams. My question is, why is it that an enemy of Lord Krishna cannot understand the mystery of Bhagavad Gita?
Well, one thing we have to remember is that Krishna is in the heart. And from him comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He's providing the intelligence by which we do everything. When he sees someone is open to the philosophy, to his devotion, then he gives us the ability to understand, because it's all mysterious. As Prabhupada says, it's very mysterious. And why is it mysterious? Because it's dealing with things beyond the range of our mind and senses. The very definition of transcendental. That's what transcendental means. It means we can't understand it with our ordinary means of understanding. So it remains a mystery to those who aren't given the ability to understand. So Krishna's seeing what our attitude is. There's a verse in the second chapter, first canto, very famous verse. Shrinvatam sukata Krishna punya shavana kirtana riddindaksto yabadrani vidunoti surit satam. So the last line says, he's the friend, surit, the best friend of the satam. Satams are the saintly devotees who are trying to understand him. He's the best friend of all, but they can appreciate it. So what does this verse say? That when Krishna, within the heart, understands that someone is hearing about him, so hearing Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or hearing the holy name, with a somewhat of a receptive devotional attitude, then he, within the heart, cleanses away what's called the badras, things which are inauspicious. What are they? Lust, anger, greed, illusion. We just read a whole bunch of verses at the end of the previous chapter about lust. It all starts with kama. Kama and prema. There's two things, right? Prema means a very strong desire to please Krishna's senses. Getting pleasure from pleasing Krishna. Kama is getting pleasure from pleasing one's own senses. So pleasure is there. And kama is what keeps us in the material world. Those pleasures that we get from the senses that have no reference to Krishna, they bind us to this material world. The whole philosophy begins, the foundation is the science of transmigration of the soul. Karma and transmigration, they go together, right? So what is the mechanism by which we get another body? Right? The mechanism is according to the state of our subtle body. We have two bodies. Gross, which we're very familiar with. Gross in several ways. Gross means just that we can see it, hear it, taste it, unfortunately smell it sometimes. And subtle means, what is the subtle body? Mind, intelligence, and ego. I mean, everyone knows we have a mind. I know you have a mind, everyone, but we can't see it. But we know it's there. And the intelligence, discriminating factor. You know, how do we make judgments? That intelligence is highly developed, more highly developed in human life than in lower life. But they have intelligence. Dogs and cats, they have some intelligence, so that they can guide, go do this and that. But it's rudimentary. So, and then the ego, the sense of self. This is our subtle body. That does not die when the gross body dies. That we develop that in our lifetime, and then the state of it, the unfulfilled desires, activities we perform, that's in the karma, which is another subtle aspect. All of that's taken into account by Daiva, the divine. Krishna himself is super soul and the demigods, and we're assigned just the right body. It's already there by the time we die to continue. Sometimes it's a subhuman body, especially in the present age. People are acting like animals, they don't need the human body. So this is the science of the transmigration of the soul and karma. And Krishna, in the heart, when he hears that we're hearing the holy name, he tends to cleanse away so many things that are impeding our progress, or impeding our understanding of who we are. Who is God? Who are we? What is this material world? What are the relationships? That's basic knowledge given in Bhagavad Gita, more detailed in Srimad Bhagavatam. If we don't know that, who am I really? If you don't have any spiritual understanding, you're going to devolve or default to material. Oh, I'm a 74-year-old guy, American. My name is Thomas. I live at this address, and here's my birth certificate. And no, that's all pertaining to my body. That's not me. You're not that body. That's the first lesson you learn in the temple, in the ashram, I remember. You're not that body, soul. You're spirit soul, eternal spirit soul. It's very encouraging. It means we live eternally. But then comes the responsibility to act in such a way that you don't have to take another body. That's like the root. That's the basic desire we should have, aspiration we should have, is to break free of the round of birth and death. Now that matures into a desire to serve Krishna, even in the material world. And that includes liberation. Anyway, it gets a little complicated. But the idea is that this is all very secret, rahasyam, it's confidential. And even if you have the text of the Bhagavad Gita, if you're not a devotee, if you're not favorable, and you're full of doubts, and why are you reading Bhagavad Gita? Oh, it's an interesting artifact. It gives us some history of, No, you're not going to be able. The secret of the Bhagavad Gita, the confidential meanings, are not going to be revealed to you. It's a very dynamic process. So we're fortunate to have this Bhagavad Gita as it is, as Prabhupada emphasizes, with realized purports, which also are informed by previous acharyas, as I mentioned, especially Baladeva Vijayabhushan. So let's see what happens. How does Arjuna respond to this? Now, remember that Arjuna is kind of representing us. Arjuna is a friend of Krishna from time immemorial. He's very intimate. But he's been covered over here in this Bhagavad Gita, so that the critical factor is, I don't want to fight. He's there to fight. See if you can get another one of these stands so that the gentleman can put the books on the stands. Or maybe you can put those underneath the book that you have. There you go. Yeah, we try to keep them off the place where we sit, the holy word. So Arjuna is representing us. Someone who is now moved by his emotions, by his bodily relationships, to give up his duty. Because it's just too much. His beloved grandfather, he was a stand-in grandfather, if you will. He wasn't, Bhishma famously didn't marry, right? But he acted as a grandfather to these orphan boys. Arjuna and his 4 brothers. That's a long story I won't get into. But so he's on the other side, a great fighter. He certainly doesn't want to kill him. He raised me as a child. And then right next to him is his teacher. He trained him in martial arts. Why should he want to kill him? And then then he's part of the same clan, really, the Kurus. And there's cousins and those who by marriage relationships. There's all kinds of friends and relatives on the other side. So that's preventing Arjuna from doing what he usually does, which is get down to fighting. He's a great warrior. He's been to many battles. But that's what Krishna wants him to do, to fight. And so there's a tension that's set up. Arjuna is following his emotions, what he wants, rather than what Krishna wants, and what he even knows is right, but he just can't bring himself to do it. And that's the dynamic here. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is spoken for that purpose. So let's see what Arjuna asks a question here. He's taking a role of someone who's like us. Well, how is this possible? Arjuna vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katametad bhajaniyam tvamado proktavaniti. Okay, before we go on, we seem to have had a spill in the corridor. Something's funny. So open that door so we get some circulation. Okay. Yeah, this will help pull it out. Hare Krishna. Yeah, it is. You see where we are? Text 4, chapter 4. Arjuna said, "The sun god Vivasvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him?" Purport. Arjuna is an accepted devotee of the Lord, so how could he not believe Krishna's words? The fact is that Arjuna is not inquiring for himself, but for those who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or for the demons who do not like the idea that Krishna should be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them only, Arjuna inquires on this point, as if he were himself not aware of the Personality of Godhead or Krishna. As it will be evident from the 10th chapter, Arjuna knew perfectly well that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fountainhead of everything, and the last word in transcendence. Of course, Krishna also appeared as the son of Devaki on this earth. How Krishna remained the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, the eternal original person, is very difficult for an ordinary man to understand. Therefore, to clarify this point, Arjuna put this question before Krishna so that he himself could speak authoritatively. That Krishna is the supreme authority is accepted by the whole world, not only at present, but from time immemorial, and the demons alone reject him. Anyway, since Krishna is the authority accepted by all, Arjuna put this question before him in order that Krishna would describe himself without being depicted by the demons, who always try to distort him in a way understandable to the demons and their followers. It is necessary that everyone, for his own interest, know the science of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna himself speaks about himself, it is auspicious for all the worlds. To the demons, such explanations by Krishna himself may appear to be strange because the demons always study Krishna from their own standpoint. But those who are devotees heartily welcome the statements of Krishna when they are spoken by Krishna himself. The devotees will always worship such authoritative statements of Krishna because they are always eager to know more and more about him. The atheists, who consider Krishna an ordinary man, may in this way come to know that Krishna is superhuman, that he is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, that he is transcendental, and that he is above the domination of the modes of material nature and above the influence of time and space. A devotee of Krishna, like Arjuna, is undoubtedly above any misunderstanding of the transcendental position of Krishna. Arjuna's putting this question before the Lord is simply an attempt by the devotee to defy the atheistic attitude of persons who consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being, subject to the modes of material nature. So, in a sense, this whole Bhagavad Gita is a setup. It's an arrangement by Krishna for Arjuna to fall into Maya, supposedly, and defy Krishna's will, so that the Gita could be spoken, so we could hear it and understand. It's all an arrangement of Krishna that to produce this book, so it will be, throughout the Kali Yuga, the present age, be a source of knowledge for everybody who is interested in the absolute truth. So he said, how is it? We're contemporaries, we're contemporaries, and I'm not 60 years old, 50 years old, whatever. So how did you speak this, millions of years ago? So this is a question that someone who is new to Krishna consciousness and doesn't accept Krishna as the eternal person would ask. But it gives Krishna a very nice opportunity to describe the actual nature of his appearance, and he'll also explain why he appears, which is very important. That begins in text 7. All right, let's go on. Shri Bhagavano Vacha. Shri Bhagavano Vacha. Bahuni me vatitani. Janmani tabacharjuna. Tanyaham veda sarvani. Natvam vetta parantapa. The Personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Purport. In the Brahma Samhita 533, we have information of many, many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there. I'm going to try, I'll do line by line, see what you can do. Let's see if we can chant it together. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanancha Vedeshu Durlabhamadurlabhamatma Bhaktau Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, or Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. It is also stated in the Brahma Samhita 539, Rama dimuti shukalani hamena tishtan nana tada makadod bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat padamakpamanyo govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, or Krishna, who is always situated in various incarnations such as Rama, Nrsimha, and many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead, known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. Okay, I think we can close that door now. In the Vedas also, it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color yet still remains one. All those multiforms are understood by the pure unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord, and whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna is one of these devotees, and in this verse it is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivasvan, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. The Lord is described in the Brahma Samhita as infallible, achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself, even though he is in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord, but by the divine grace of a devotee, by the divine grace, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demonic brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of the body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchidananda body. He is Advaita, which means that there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. So we have the beginning of a two-verse explanation of the difference between the Lord's birth and the birth of anyone else, including us. Many, many births I have had, Krishna says. Now, as Krishna, he's appeared many, many times. But how often does Krishna appear? Once in a day of Brahma. And how long is that in our years? Remember?
1 million.
How many?
1 million.
8,640 million, which is quite inconceivable. And that's just one day for Brahma. He lives 100 years of those days, bringing his total to, got to know this number, 311 trillion 40 billion. Try to remember. Pretty inconceivable. You know, we have trouble living to 80 years, you know, what to speak of 100. So, Brahma, you know, why? How can he live that long? Well, one thing is, his body is not made like ours. It's not made of like mostly earth and water. It's almost all intelligence. Yeah, almost all intelligence. And he's so intelligent, he's 4 heads. I mean, you got to imagine how intelligent you need to be to organize this whole creation. Yeah. I was just reading that, you know, he wasn't so sure he could do it. I mean, there was a lot of anxiety. trying to figure it out, you know. And when he started, especially populating it, a lot of false starts. Remember? Did you read? What has he got to work with? His own mind. So he created this his own mind, and some demons came out. They attacked him. It's like, you know, it's like if you're trying to get an assignment, build the Empire State Building. Oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, so that's how anxious he was. But Brahma, you know, he's material. He's a person like us in the sense that he also dies eventually. But it's just to show you the incredible variety of living beings there are. And Brahma, you know, he was there, you know, in the beginning, and Krishna was there. That's why he sung that song, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. There was these two verses here that we just read, which are by him after he meditated and had his revelation. So Krishna is revealing the intricacies of his appearance on earth. Many, many times he comes, and he comes for the same reason. He comes as he will describe, to reinstitute Dharma. And when Dharma becomes covered, or there are discrepancies, then he comes to why does he care? Because only by practicing genuine Dharma can these living entities, who are his children, who he loves, can they get out of this torment of birth, old age, disease, and death, and the threefold miseries, and forgetting him. So he's very anxious to have genuine Dharma, but due to the force of time, it keeps getting obscured. That's what happens as Kali Yuga comes, and so periodically he comes, or he sends his representatives to do the same thing. So here we're finding out the intricacies of his birth. And Arjuna was also there, but he forgot. Just like we all forgot our last birth. Does anyone remember his last birth? Maybe you do. Go ahead. Oh wait, there's an audience, so give him a mic. Just speak into the mic.
You mentioned for the return for Dharma. As far as Dharma is
mention the what?
Bringing Dharma back.
Yes. Genuine Dharma.
Is Dharma something that comes from the Gita, that is, we all have the same Dharma, or is it individual Dharma that we have?
We have the same basic Dharma, but there's unlimited varieties of how that Dharma manifests. Prabhupada was very fond of quoting a verse from another book, one of our main books, Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, which means that Dharma is enunciated by God. If you have a man-made Dharma, then it's called a Kaitava Dharma. It's not a genuine Dharma, it's a cheating religion. Because real Dharma is meant to take you out of this world entirely. It's described, what's the definition? It's such a wonderful book, the Srimad Bhagavatam, right near the beginning, second chapter. Sabai pangsang paro dharmo yato bhaktarir hokshajeya haitukya paryada yamasu prasidati. How can the Atma become, that's us, the soul, become fully satisfied in life? You can't be fully satisfied if you're going to die. You can delude yourself into being satisfied for a little while, but then the roof caves in and you're not satisfied anymore. So Dharma must be a way in which we regain our original function, our understanding of who we are, and we actually learn how to act in that way, and we get out of this material world entirely. So what this verse says, Savai Pangsang Paro Dharma, transcendental, genuine Dharma. By the way, first of all, the meaning of the word Dharma, a lot of people don't know because it's an English word now. What does it really mean? Dharma means an essential characteristic that you have that you cannot be alienated from. For instance, a chair has a Dharma. We give this example. And now we have more chairs, thanks to Joseph. We have these benches, which have pretty much the same Dharma, and that is to support you when you sit. If you sit in that chair and it collapses, it's not meaning it's Dharma. It's a chair in name only, right? And it can be pretty cataclysmic. So what is the Dharma of the soul? The Dharma of the soul is ultimately to serve God. But where is God? In our ignorance, we serve so many other things. The first thing we serve? Our body. We serve our senses. You know, the senses are demanding. Look at this, taste that, go here. You know. And we, the soul, through the means of the intelligence and the mind, we serve those demands. But then we get more and more entangled here, because we're serving the body, but the body is temporary. It's a bad master. And ultimately, it becomes old and sick and not ready to, it's just a source of pain and suffering. Until finally it doesn't function anymore, we leave it. And we take another one to try it again. But we're still serving. We're still responding to the demands. And it's very complicated, because we're also directing the intelligence to go here and do that. And the sense is, oh, that's not good. I don't want to see that. That's ridiculous. Let me look over it. Oh, I really like that. Foods. They manipulate the capitalists. They manipulate your tongue. They engineer the foods in such a way that they become addictive. Like you go down to any of the major grocery stores or the supermarket. So we have the Ralph's down here near the beach. So I go in there. I buy one thing there, kale. They have nice kale, nice fresh kale, and then I come out. But sometimes I have to use the restroom. You go through and I go down. There's a whole aisle of snacks, tacos and this and Doritos and all of the offshoots. And what's the purpose? They've already addicted you. I got to there's going to be a football game. I got to have 5 bags of Doritos. And what happens? Your health gets ruined, right? I mean, the body's not made for that. So this is. But if you don't know anything else, if you haven't been trained in devotional service, just eat prasadam. Everything we cook fresh. It's the engineering. It's the, what do they call it? The artificial way in which they make the food, processed foods that are not healthy. The freshly made food, the Christian kind of diet is healthy. So, so part of the benefits of being a devotee is that no more Doritos, They're not offered and they're not offerable. We only have prasadam that we offer. So that's part of the Dharma. And it's been developed over years. I mean, we have books of how-to, the nectar of devotion. So many, step 1, 2, 3, what you should do, what you should not do. Like any discipline that you want to do. So I want to become a musician, say. 'Cause I learned several instruments when I was younger. Okay, well, first you got to get the instrument, and then you got to learn how to treat the instrument right and tune it up properly, and then you need a teacher. Right? You're going to say, no, don't do it this way. You hold it this way and play it. Well, that's a little better, but it's a little flat. In other words, there's a guide. And then if you do it right and you're serious about it, then you get to the point where you can make music. That's the fruit. And it's pleasing. So why wouldn't it be so for spiritual life? Because we're coming from a point of ignorance and a point of not, being able to be in our constant neutral position in relation to God. So we need training. And the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness is that even in the training period, there's still so much fun to be had. There's so much, you don't have to wait till, like 10, 20 years before you get the fruit of it. This mantra is so powerful that even if you're the most sinful person in the world, but you happen to chant the mantra, then you can start to get purified if you get good association and you want to. And there are so many historical records of that. So the process of devotional service is what has been given. I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of the original question, which was?
It was in relation to Dharma and whether that comes from the Gita, and is it applied to a general everybody, or is it individual Dharma?
No, the basic Dharma is there for every living entity. And every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, of God. And our most happy state of being is performing our original function of serving the Lord. And immediately people say, well, what about me? But the wonderful thing is that because we're part and parcel of Krishna, when we serve Krishna, we become happy. We're serving him, but that's our natural position. When we serve the body, which we're not, then we become there's suffering involved. Then we get another body. But if we're not serving this body, but using the body, the senses, the mind, intelligence, to connect with Krishna, this is where the yoga comes in. And the wonderful thing is the connection is through service and through increasing affection and love. That's why it's bhakti. Bhakti means an exchange of love. It's not just one way. So you can imagine experiencing a life like that, where you can see Krishna everywhere manifest in the world and in your own heart. And your life is one of glorifying, dancing, chanting, among other devotees, and sacrificing in order to bring this wonderful news to others so that they can benefit. Because our mission is to, in our state, is to become pure and to get out of this world. Go back home, back to Godhead. This is Prabhupada's famous phrase, go back home, back to Godhead. And we want to take as many people as possible with us, because this is our natural state. And we're all brothers and sisters. We're all related as souls. So that's Krishna's mission. He's going to explain in the next verse, which we won't do tonight.
Thank you.
Tomorrow. Why he comes and when he comes. And then this is our mission too, to help him to reinstitute Dharma in ourselves. And the thing is, you can become free of so much anxiety and so much trouble in your life by practicing this principle of bhakti yoga. It's natural for the soul, and you can feel that so many things. I don't have time now, but I can, my life before Krishna consciousness and where I was headed, now it's like almost 50 years down the road. And I said, thank God, thank Krishna, thank Prabhupada for giving me this inspiration to start this process so I could avoid so many pitfalls in my life. To be continued. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we're going to have a ceremony. These curtains will open. We'll have a little kirtan. And you're welcome to stay. And afterward, prasadam, which is sacred food. You know that.